And I asked him, I said, what are the thoughts and mindset that you have? And he looked at me almost like with this puzzled look on his face. Like, what do you mean? I'm like,
They always give you the worst advice in the world, right? It's 3 words.
hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. Hey guys, so I'm bringing on somebody who's actually an old mentor of mine. And I'm not saying he's old because I know he's gonna be like, oh, thanks a lot, Chris. But this is guy Noah St. John. Maybe you guys have been following him as well. I know he's been out for a long time. I first learned about him when he talked about Afformations, right? And I'm sure we'll even talk a little bit about that. But here he's actually got a new book coming out called The 7-Figure Expert that's coming out. And he's done things with 7-figure chiropractors. I know some of you guys are chiropractors following us as well. He's covered a wide array of success for so many people over the years. So excited to have him on. But, hey, you're like the health coach to the stars, man. So Noah, welcome to our show.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, the mental health coach to the
That's right.
stars.
Exactly. Which, in my opinion, you can't have health without the mental health, right?
Exactly. You got it.
Exactly. So give us a little bit more of your backstory. Like how did you even progress and evolve to where you are here today?
Well, just giving you the real short Reader's Digest version. I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood, and I know that's a total cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in this little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which is one of the wealthiest communities in New England, but my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally, because we lived at
On
the
the other
bottom
side
of
of the tracks.
right, on a dirt road, right? And in a home which was drafty and unfinished that we had to end up losing to foreclosure when I was just 15 years old. So you hear these motivational speakers, they'll get on stage, they'll say things like, well, we were poor, but we were happy. We didn't know we were poor. Well, in my family, we freaking knew we were poor because my mother, bless her heart, reminded us every day that we were poor and miserable. So it wasn't happy, it sucked. And so I hated being poor. I hated that life of poverty because I saw that right down the street, there's great wealth and abundance. So my whole childhood, I was like, how the heck do I get from here to there? And of course, there was no one to help me with that. There was no internet back then. So I did the only thing I could think of to do, which is I went to the library and I read every book in the self-help section. And I just said, how do I make my life better? How do I improve myself and get out of this poverty that I hated, And so I read every book and, they all basically said the same thing and, change your beliefs and use affirmations and all this stuff. They all said pretty much the same thing. Anyway, so I really tried to get them to work, but as hard as I tried to get them to work, I just couldn't. And so at the age of 25, I found myself, broke and unhappy and miserable, and my girlfriend left me. It was like a country song, but it was really true. And anyway, I decided to take my own life at the age of 25. I decided to commit suicide when I was 25. Now, at the very last moment, my life was spared, but I didn't know why. And so I realized I've got to find, what am I doing on this planet? What is my purpose here on earth? And I didn't know how to answer that question. So I went back to the library, read every book in the spiritual section. And I really just immersed myself in the spiritual thinkers of our time. Now, fast forward 5 years after that, in 1997, I had these epiphanies that really changed my life when I realized exactly what was missing in all of those books that I'd spent all those years reading. And I realized that this was my message and it was my purpose here on the earth. So I started my company, successclinic.com, in 1997 in a 300 square foot basement apartment with $800 and a book on HTML. I had nothing. I had no money, no business experience, no marketing, sales. Of course, this was years before Facebook and YouTube and all those things we know today. But I just had this mission to really help people, to make an impact. And as Steve Jobs put it, put a dent in the universe. So I started writing books and, coaching people, whether it's one-on-one or group coaching. And, my clients started to get incredible results. So I started to write more books and get more clients. And, now my clients have added over $3 billion in new revenues as a result of my coaching. Meaning we've helped people go from stuck to making 6, 7, and even 8 figures and more. And, we've helped people lose weight and find love and improve their marriages, save marriages. So really, it has had a ripple effect, as to use your term, really all around the world. And it's really been an amazing ride.
Now, we often talk about in the show, like there's that 1-2 punch, right? It's like strategy is great, but you got to have the mindset to go with strategy. And with those two working in tandem, they kind of work together.
That's right.
What do you feel like a lot of people are missing in the mindset piece? Because there's a lot of people talking about mindset, right? And heck, we even have The Secret. And even John Assaraf, he was on the show recently too. He's like, the secret is missing the whole action piece, right? The whole essential piece to this. What do you feel is missing with a lot of the people that talk about mindset, whether it's money mindset or anything in life?
Well, what I've been teaching for over 25 years is what I call the power habits of unconsciously successful people. Now, that sounds like a
Mhm.
mouthful, but it's actually really simple. I'll break it down for you. So, everybody knows that, if we want to have a better life, we have to improve our habits, right? We all know that. So, there's a lot of teachers and teachings out there about habits, right? And habit change. The problem is that they're talking about the habits that are up here in the conscious level. And so if you think about it like an iceberg, right? An iceberg, most people, I'm sure your listeners know that, about 5% of our thoughts, behaviors, and actions as human beings are up in the conscious level. It's like the top part of the iceberg that you can see. But meanwhile, the vast 95% is hidden. It's below the surface. That's the unconscious part of our habits and our thoughts and behaviors every day. And so the point is, what I always say to my coaching clients, whether it's one-on-one or group coaching, I always say, listen, it wasn't the part of the iceberg that they could see that sunk the Titanic. It was the part that they didn't see that sunk the Titanic, and that's the part
Mhm.
that's sinking most of us as well, meaning the unconscious habits. So what I realized and discovered many years ago is that these highly successful people, the people we always look up to, have you ever, these people that, no matter what they do, everything seems to turn to gold, no matter what they
Mhm.
do, and they're not even working that hard, or at least it doesn't seem like they are. And you're here, you're busting your buns and you're working hard and all this hustling and grinding. And meanwhile, they're just sail on la-di-da. And it's like, what the heck is going on around here? Right. That just was so frustrating for me. And so I realized that those people like that, I call them the naturals of success, are doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, number one. And therefore, number two, they can never teach it to you. So that's why a
Mhm.
lot of people hire me to coach them after they've gone to all these seminars, after they've gone to all the gurus, and they're still stuck. They're hitting that income ceiling, as I call it, the income ceiling syndrome. And what I do is and they say, well, no, how come I've gone to all these seminars and done all these things and I'm still stuck? And I go, because they left everything out. That's why. So I'll give you a perfect example of this. I was talking with one of my clients. His name's Charles. And I said, how much do you think it's going to cost you if we don't fix this problem? Meaning, if we don't fix the problem, your income ceiling, that's causing your income ceiling. And he said, well, $1 million. He said, no, it's easily going to cost me $1 million if I don't fix this problem. And I said, Charles, I hear this every day, and people say to me, Noah, this is costing me, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million a year or more. I mean, so we're not talking just 1 year. It's cumulative, right? It keeps adding up and
Yeah.
up. So my point is, I said, I hear this all the time, number one. Number two, just give me 10% of that $1 million, and I will find you $1 million in the next 12 months. In other words, if you give me $1 and I give you $10 back, is that a good deal? He goes, well, yeah, that's a good deal. So he decided to hire me as his coach right there on the spot. He decided to hire me right there. So he paid me $100K, right? $100,000. That's 10% of $1 million, right? So he paid me 100. He decided to hire me, pay me $100K to coach him one-on-one for a year. Now, as it turns out, I didn't find him $1 million in the next 12 months. As it turns out, I found him $1.8 million in just 10 months. So he gave me $1 and I gave him $18 back. Is that a good deal? No,
Mhm.
that's a great deal. And he also sent me an email recently and he said, guess what, Noah? Guess where I am? I'm on a 7-week vacation with my wife. He said, I just bought a new RV with all this money, that we have now. He said, this is a dream I've had for years. For years, I've wanted to buy an RV and travel the country with my wife. And I've never been able to do it before. Now I can do it because now I have more time than ever before and I have more money than ever before. So not only did you help me make more money, but you also helped me fulfill my dream and get my life back. So that's the power of these power habits.
It's when you said it at first, I knew exactly what you're talking about because like you, I remember growing up in town. Now, my town wasn't wealthy or anything like that. There were some wealthy kids, but I spent 5 years in a trailer park, with I was trailer trash basically. And I remember even my senior year of high school, like my friend who was very middle class, but he always seemed to get the best jobs and he always seemed to have the right connections, right? I was like, how is he always finding these jobs? And I would just tail along with him. Like he would just get
Right,
me those jobs because I knew him, right?
right.
And it reminds me when I was just starting to learn the stuff you're talking about here. And I went to my brother-in-law who came from a successful family. They were self-made multimillionaires. And I asked him, I said, what are the thoughts and mindset that you have? And he looked at me almost like with this puzzled look on his face. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, what's the mindset you have? Like what kind of things do you do every morning habit wise? And how do you be successful? He's like, you just do it. And
Exactly.
just to your point,
Exactly.
like so many people, they get to the point where they don't know how to teach what they do every day that makes them successful. And so you try to copy their behaviors, but it never seems to land because you
Never
don't have
works.
the subconscious mindset to
Right.
support it.
I'll give you a perfect example of what you just said. Have you ever, in the dating niche, right? Have you ever heard, if you've ever been single, which most of us were single at one point, right? And you're trying to find a date, right? And
Mhm.
what do they always tell you to do? They always give you the worst advice in the world, right? It's 3 words: just be yourself. Just be yourself. That is the worst advice that ever has been given, right? Because that's what I call the naturals of success, right? These are the naturals. There are guys that we know, and we know who they are, right? They're just natural with women, and they always have women flocking after them. And you go on, how the heck, because I was a nerd in high school, right? I had Coke bottle
Mhm.
glasses, I had a face full of acne, and I didn't have shoulder length hair. I had shoulder width hair, right? So I couldn't get a date to save my life, right? So I was like, how the heck do these guys do this, right? And well, just be yourself. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, right? So that's exactly what these naturals, there's the naturals of success. And that's what I realized. So you could sit there and interview them all day long, exactly like you were saying. They wouldn't even tell you any of the things that I've been teaching for over 25 years because I had to, number one, read all these books, spend an insane amount of money and an insane amount of time studying what they don't tell us. So you can read all the books you want, you can interview them all you want. They're never going to tell you. And it's
That's
not
right.
that they're necessarily trying to hide something. Maybe some of them are, but most of them are just unconscious. And they're like, hey, just be yourself. And you're like, that doesn't work, right? So what I've done is I've broken it down and literally made it a system. I've systematized it so that now any of us can do it. You just have to follow the framework. You just have to follow it and fill in the blanks exactly what I've given. So, like clients like Charles and others, that's why they're able to get this, as we call it, hockey stick growth, right? So if you picture a hockey stick, right, you're hitting that income ceiling, and maybe it's 6 figures, maybe it's 5 figures, whatever it might be, right? But you just keep hitting your head on that ceiling no matter what. And then all of a sudden you put these power habits and like we had one client, Stephen, and he increased his business by 800% in just 12 weeks. 12 weeks, 800% growth. Talk about how that's why we have a program called the 12-week breakthrough, where I'm known for helping people make more in just 12 weeks than they did in the previous 12 months, right? And so that's what it takes to install these power habits.
Well, and that really leads to my next question is because I guarantee people are like myself, right, are salivating saying, all right, Noah, like where do I find these? Like, is it the 12-week breakthrough? Like, what's a good first step for me?
Well, gosh, we have a lot of great first steps. You mentioned my new book called The 7-Figure Expert. So
Yeah.
what we've done here is, because of course I've known Chris for a long time, is the book is free. So if you go to, here's the book right here. It's called 7-Figure Expert. If you go to 7figureexpertbook.com, very easy to remember, 7-Figure Expert Book, by the way, the number 7 or the word 7, they both work, 7figureexpertbook.com. The book is free. And this is about your ultimate guide to a life of more impact, influence, and financial freedom. So this is for the people who really want to, as you put it, live that life of freedom, financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom. This is what I've been helping my clients do for, over 20 years now. So 7figureexpertbook.com. And the other place you can go to is breakthroughwithnoah.com. Also easy to remember, breakthroughwithnoah.com. And you can watch a training video that I did there and see tons of case studies, right? My clients, like Tamisa, who tripled her investment in 2 weeks, Tim, who made a 7-figure business in less than 2 years, after coaching with me, and on and on and on. Anyway, so this is one thing I just want to say. When you go to breakthroughwithnoah.com or 7figureexpertbook.com, that I want you to realize that this is a system. And how do you know it's a system? Because it's not just about one person. See, when you go to the gurus, and this is something I've been talking about for many years now, when you go to the gurus, right? And I gave them over $500,000 only to find they can't teach their way out of a paper bag, right? When you go to the gurus, you find that their only success story is themselves. Hey, look at my car, look at my helicopter, look at my plane. And you're like, well, that's great for you, man, but have you helped anyone else make more money? And the answer is not really, so that's great that they're great at making money, but does that mean they have a system? Not so much usually, right? So that's the point. Yes, of course, I've made a lot of money doing this, but who cares? It's about the people that it works for. That's how you know it's a system, and it's not personality driven, it's system driven success. And that's what you want to look for.
Love it. And we'll definitely put that in the show notes too, just so that people have a 7-figure book or 7figureexpertbook.com. We'll make sure that's
Right.
in there as well. But one final question for you, Noah. If someone were just saying like, okay, what's a good first step, or maybe just, one habit that I could start today to really enhance the results when they get your book, what would that be?
The first thing you want to do is understand what it is that you really want, right? Write down the 3 things that you want over the next 12 months. Now, I said, oh, it's all goal setting. Oh, we've heard that a million times. Yeah, you've heard about goal setting, but here's what you haven't heard. Nobody talks about what happens after you set the goals. And you know what happens after you set your goals? Most people say, I can't do it because. And that's what I call your head trash. I've written 25 books on how to take out your head trash. The one problem that's causing all your other problems. So it's exactly like a domino effect, like Charles and Adam and all the stories you'll read about at Breakthrough with No End in my books. But when you see that problem, that is the thing that you have to realize. You have one problem that's causing all your other problems. I call it your head trash. So when you take out your head trash, that's when you can really get that. In fact, that's exactly why you can get that hockey stick growth. So that's what the system that I created is all about. It's about fixing the one problem that's causing all your other problems. So yes, go take advantage of these resources. But number one, understand what it is you want. And number two, understand what it is you're telling yourself about why you can't get what you want. And then number three, ask yourself, what is it costing you to keep thinking that? Is it costing you $500,000, $1 million or more per year? Remember, this keeps adding up. So that's what I want people to realize is that no, yes, goal setting is the start, but it's nowhere near what they've told us. It's way deeper than that.
So agree. I completely agree with that. I wish anybody listening to this right now needs to like internalize this. They need to put this in their, not only in their brain, but in their soul, like as part of their being. Because if they actually understand that it's always about not just the mindset, but the being aspect that comes about how you become the very thing you're trying to attract, it becomes way easier to accomplish it than just trying to do it with true grit.
You got it.
So, well, no, I appreciate your time today. This has been awesome. Again, we'll be sure to put all the links and even social media. I know you're on social media as well. We'll be sure to connect with you on that as well. But again, thank you so much. So generous of your time. And thank you so much for the generosity of this book. Everybody go check out the sevenfigureexpertbook.com. And again, that's not it's just sevenfigureexpertbook.com. Check that out right now.